This is Revenge Bible. I never thought a single sheet of paper could destroy the last piece of faith I had in my marriage. But there I was, sitting in the dim corner of the family courthouse lobby, staring at the DNA results that my husband, my Nathan, insisted on. My hands were trembling, not because I feared the truth, but because he did. And he feared it enough to deny our daughter, Lacey, a 3-year-old who still sleeps with her stuffed bunny and believes her father hung the moon. The fluorescent lights above flickered, humming the same cold rhythm that had filled my home for months. I pressed my thumb against the folded envelope, as if feeling its weight would somehow prepare me. But nothing could have prepared me for the moment Nathan leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, eyes hardened, and said, "Read it. I want to hear you say it." My name is Emily Hart. I'm 29 years old, and I work as an administrative assistant in a small insurance office on the south side of town. I'm a mother before anything else, a quiet woman with a habit of journaling at night, writing down the moments that matter, even the ones that hurt. And in that courthouse lobby, I realized I was about to write the hardest entry of my life. That was the moment I realized love doesn't disappear in flames. Sometimes it dies quietly, strangled by doubt. I cleared my throat, swallowed the ache, and opened the page. 99.9% probability of paternity, I whispered. There was no sound after that, only the silent list that follows a bomb. Not outrage, not apology, not even relief, just a cold, stunned silence where his trust should have been. Nathan looked away. His mother shifted in her seat like she had been waiting for this result to embarrass him, not vindicate me. And I just felt the floor under me vanish. Because in that moment, it hit me. He hadn't done this to find truth. He'd done it to justify letting me fall. I remember gripping my elbows, holding myself together as the walls seemed to tilt. Lacey's soft giggles echoed in my memory, her first steps, her hair that curls the same way Nathan's did as a child, and yet he believed I had cheated, lied, betrayed. I hadn't lost my husband in that courthouse. I had lost him the moment he let suspicion replace love. And yet, I didn't cry. Not there. Not in front of him. Not in front of the people who already decided who I was before the truth was read aloud. Instead, I breathed. Slowly. Deliberately. Because something inside me shifted. I realized that betrayal doesn't always come from enemies. Sometimes it comes from the person you trusted enough to build a life with. And that realization, the quiet, devastating collapse of everything I thought I knew, was the beginning of my revenge. Stay with me because this is where everything turns. Let me ask you something. If the person who promised to protect your family became the one who tried to break it, what would you do? Share your honest opinion in the comments down below. I truly want to hear your perspective. Here at Revenge Bible, we explore real psychological stories of betrayal and justice. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss our next emotional reckoning. Before everything collapsed, my life was quiet, in the kind of way people mistake for ordinary. But ordinary can be beautiful when you're building it with someone you believe in. Back then, I believed in Nathan with my whole chest. I believed in the marriage we said we'd protect. And I believed in the tiny family we were raising. just the three of us, in a small suburban neighborhood with trimmed lawns, cracked sidewalks, and the smell of weekend barbecues drifting through open windows. Our home wasn't perfect, but it was warm. Or at least I thought it was. I worked full-time as an administrative assistant at an insurance office. Nothing glamorous. My days were spent organizing claims files, responding to emails, and brewing coffee for myself just to keep the rhythm going. I enjoyed the routine more than I ever admitted out loud. Predictability felt like safety. After work, I'd pick up Lacey from daycare. Her tiny legs would sprint toward me, arms wide, cheeks flushed from play. And that feeling, those small arms around my neck made every long day worth it. Nathan worked in IT for a commercial contracting company. His schedule was unpredictable, but I convinced myself it was part of the job. Nights when he came home late, I saved dinner for him on a warm plate. Nights when he came home silent, I tucked the silence between us and pretended it was exhaustion, not distance. Nights when he'd fall asleep on the couch instead of beside me, I'd journal about gratitude to remind myself not to worry. It's strange, looking back. You can love someone so deeply that you don't notice the cold creeping in, not until it is fully inside your walls. The early years of our marriage had been soft. We laughed often. We took long drives. We talked about dreams, his desire to climb the corporate ladder, my soft wish to one day start a home baking business. But after Lacey was born, I sensed subtle shifts. Nathan grew quieter, more withdrawn. He'd study her face sometimes, not with adoration, but with something like calculation. I didn't understand it then. I thought parenthood had overwhelmed him. When Lacey turned 1, my mother commented that she had Nathan's smile. When she turned 2, his sister joked that she had his stubborn streak. Yet the older she got, the more Nathan seemed to be looking for reasons not to see himself in her. At the time, I brushed it off as new parent anxiety. I never imagined it was suspicion. We lived next door to a retired school teacher named Mrs. Daniels. She called me Sunshine Girl and would bring over little knitted hats for Lacey. On evenings when Nathan didn't come home until after midnight, Mrs. Daniels would sit on my porch with me, sipping peppermint tea and telling me that marriage had seasons and this one would pass too. I clung to her comfort because I needed someone to say the words I struggled to believe. Inside the house, I tried to keep the warmth alive. I cooked Nathan's favorite meals: roast pot, spicy chili, garlic chicken. I left notes in his lunchbox. I asked about his day, even when he didn't ask about mine. I thought that's what love did, held on tighter when things got rough. But slowly, I started journaling more at night. Not gratitude anymore. Questions. Why was he so tense? Why did he look at me like he was searching for something I didn't know I'd lost? Why did he flinch when I mentioned how much Lacey reminded him of her? Still, I trusted him fully, blindly, completely. Some Sundays after church, we'd stop by the park. Lacey would run through the grass, her curls bouncing, her dimples showing. She'd call out, "Daddy, watch!" And Nathan would raise his head from his phone long enough to smile before retreating back into whatever held his attention. I told myself he was tired. I told myself I wasn't trying hard enough. I told myself marriages don't break over small things. But marriages don't break over small things. They break over small things that have grown roots. It wasn't until the night Nathan accused me, out of nowhere, that I understood those roots had been growing for years. It was a Thursday evening. Lacey had fallen asleep with her bunny tucked under her cheek. I was folding laundry on the couch when Nathan walked in, dropped his bag, and stared at me with a face I barely recognized. He didn't yell. He didn't accuse me emotionally. He just asked, quietly, coldly, "Emily, is Lacey even mine?" The world stopped. I remembered the towel slipping from my hands. I remember my chest tightening like a fist inside me. I remember thinking it had to be a joke, some horrible lapse of judgment he'd immediately take back. But he didn't. He stood there, arms folded, eyes fixed on me like I was a stranger. In one sentence, he shattered the foundation of our life. And no history, no soft years, no shared memories could protect me from that blow. Back then, I didn't realize it, but that moment marked the quiet ending of who I used to be and the slow rise of someone I never imagined I'd become. The night Nathan confronted me should have been forgettable, ordinary, unremarkable, one of those evenings that slips quietly into the archives of marriage. But betrayal hides best in the familiar. And that night, I learned how deeply silence can wound. Lacey had fallen asleep early, worn out from a birthday party at daycare. I remember tucking her in, smoothing her curls, kissing her forehead. I lingered in her doorway for a moment, just admiring the rise and fall of her tiny breaths. Those quiet moments used to calm me. That night, I didn't know I was savoring the last bit of peace I would have for a long time. When I stepped into the living room, Nathan was already home. No text, no call, just sitting on the couch with the lights off, the glow of the TV reflecting off his face. He didn't greet me, he didn't look at me. I felt something low in my stomach tryst, an instinct I didn't want to acknowledge. I sat across from him, folding a pair of Lacey's pajamas. "Long day?" I asked gently. He muted the TV. "Emily," he said, "I need to ask you something." His voice was strange, too flat, too deliberate. I stopped folding. "Okay," I replied, waiting. He didn't ease into it. He didn't hesitate. He didn't even look conflicted. He just said it. "Is Lacey mine?" The world cracked clean in half. I remembered the sound of my breath leaving my body, slow and shaky. I tried to laugh because surely this couldn't be real. But the look on his face, cold, accusatory, told me he hadn't asked out of fear. He asked out of certainty. "Nathan, what are you talking about?" I whispered. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, eyes dark with something between resentment and triumph. "Just answer me. Are you sure she's mine? Because I don't see it, and my mom doesn't either." Her mom. Of course. Linda had never liked me. Too soft, too humble, not enough pedigree for her son. She made comments about Lacey's complexion, her hair texture, her features, subtle at first, then sharper. I had brushed them off as ignorance, not seeds of discord. But Nathan had let those seeds grow. I felt my throat tighten. Yes, she's yours. Why would you even think? Because, he cut in, things don't add up and I've done the math. He said it like a prosecutor presenting a case, not a husband speaking to the mother of his child. Well, what math, Nathan? I asked. My hands were shaking. Explain it to me. He stood up, pacing. His shoulders were tense, his jaw clenched. Her birthday. The way she looks, the way she acts, the way... He exhaled sharply. And the fact that you were distant during that time. I blinked. I was pregnant, exhausted. You know that. He waved a hand dismissively. Yeah, well, maybe you weren't distant because you were exhausted. Maybe you were guilty. The accusation hit like a slap I never saw coming. I felt my eyes sting. Nathan, I have never cheated on you, ever. How can you think? He faced me again, and this time his voice rose. Because I don't believe you anymore, and I haven't for a long time. There it was. Not a crack in trust, a grave already dug. My knees felt weak. I sank into the couch, breath catching in my throat. So you've been doubting me, what, for years? Without saying a word? He looked away. You would have lied anyway. That sentence carved into me deeper than anything else. Not because of what it implied, but because of the certainty with which he said it. He had already condemned me in a courtroom inside his head. He didn't need truth. He needed justification. I stood up slowly, every part of me trembling. Nathan, look at me. Look at me and tell me you honestly believe I would betray you like that. Tell me you think I'm capable of something so cruel. He didn't look. He didn't blink. He just said, I want a DNA test. The room spun. My heart cracked in places I didn't know existed. There is a particular kind of pain that comes only from being doubted by the person you gave your life to. I felt it in every bone. I whispered, if you need it, then we'll do it. But this is going to leave a scar. He shrugged. Truth matters more than feelings. Feelings. As if mine were disposable, as if Lacey were a theory to be proven, not a child who loved him without hesitation. I nodded slowly because arguing with a man who had already rewritten the story was pointless. Okay, I said softly, get the test. He stared at me, waiting for me to fall apart, but I didn't. Not yet. He walked towards the bedroom, muttering to himself, we'll see, we'll finally see. When the door closed behind me, I sank to the floor and pressed my palms to my face. My tears were soundless, not because I was trying to be strong, but because I was numb, hollow, gone. The betrayal wasn't that he questioned Lacey's paternity. It was that he questioned my character, my integrity, my worth. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. He didn't love me anymore. He loved the idea of catching me doing something I never did. That was the night my marriage ended. Quietly, cruelly, and without a single apology. The days leading up to the DNA test felt unreal. Like living inside a fog so thick I couldn't see 3 steps ahead of me. I went to work, picked up Lacey from daycare, cooked dinner, cleaned the house, but everything felt muted, as if the world had turned down its volume while my thoughts grew unbearably loud. I kept replaying Nathan's accusation in my mind, trying to find the moment when doubt had replaced love. But nothing made sense. Still, I didn't crumble. Something inside me went still. Not strong, just still. When Nathan scheduled the DNA test, he didn't tell me. I found out because a message popped up on his phone while he was in the shower. The phone buzzed against the kitchen counter, and when I glanced at the screen, I saw the notification, paternity lab appointment confirmed for Tuesday at 3 p.m. He hadn't even planned to tell me the date. I stared at the message for a long time, the words blurring. Then I placed the phone back exactly where it had been, as though touching it might alter something. He came out moments later, towel around his waist, not meeting my eyes. Appointment set, Tuesday. As if the phone hadn't already told me. I nodded. I'll be there. He didn't answer. That was the first clue. Not just that he didn't trust me, but that he didn't care about the damage he was causing. The second clue came the night before the appointment. I dropped a load of laundry into the basket and walked into the hallway, hearing faint whispers from our bedroom. Nathan was on the phone. No, Mom, she doesn't know what's coming. When the results come back, she won't have anywhere to hide. I stopped breathing. He paused, listening. Yes, he said. You were right about her. I should have seen it earlier. I stepped back, heart hammering so loudly I could hear it in my ears. I returned to the laundry room, gripping the edge of the counter to steady myself. He didn't think he was uncovering truth. He thought he was setting up a trap. And he wanted his mother to witness my fall. I suddenly remembered the way Linda had studied Lacey's features over the years, the way she'd tilt her head, lips pursed, like she was evaluating merchandise rather than a child. I remembered the comments. Are you sure she's yours? Kids don't always resemble a father, especially when the mother's dominant. Words meant to plant poison. And Nathan had let them grow. The next day at the clinic, I held Lacey in my lap while Nathan filled out the forms. She played with the zipper on my jacket, unaware of the tension radiating off her father. The technician swabbed her tiny mouth gently, then mine, then Nathan's. The whole process took 5 minutes. But those 5 minutes felt like watching someone dismantle your life, piece by piece. As we walked to the parking lot, Nathan said, "Don't act nervous." I stopped walking. "I'm not nervous. I'm hurt." He looked away, jaw tight. "Well, maybe if you were honest from the start, we wouldn't be here." I stared at him, my voice fragile but steady. "I've never been anything but honest with you." He shrugged. "We'll see." The third clue came a week later, when the results were ready. Nathan insisted we go to the courthouse, not the clinic. "It's official that way," he said. But I knew the truth. He wanted an audience. He wanted the legitimacy of a public setting. He wanted witnesses when he believed he'd prove me wrong. My stomach twisted the entire drive. Lacey was at daycare, safe, unaware of the storm brewing around her existence. I walked through the courthouse doors, feeling like a defendant in a trial I didn't consent to. We sat in the waiting area, the same cold spot where eventually everything would break open. Nathan's mother was there already, sitting upright, her purse folded neatly in her lap. She smiled at me. Smiled, like someone who had purchased front-row tickets. Clue number 4. When the clerk finally handed Nathan the sealed envelope, he didn't even hesitate. He tore it open like a man unwrapping a gift. His eyes scanned the page, and his confidence evaporated in an instant. 99.9% probability of paternity. My breath caught, not in surprise, never in surprise, but in heartbreak at the look on his face. Shock, confusion, a flicker of fear, and then something worse, embarrassment. He didn't apologize. He didn't soften. He didn't look at me with regret. He looked at me like I had humiliated him. And that was clue number 5, the final clue. The one that made everything clear. Nathan had not been searching for truth. He had been searching for justification. Justification to resent me? Justification to detach? Justification to rewrite our marriage as something he had endured, not chosen. When we walked out of the courthouse, he didn't reach for me. He didn't speak to me. He walked ahead, shoulders stiff, leaving me trailing behind like a stranger. That's when clarity settled over me. Not loud, not angry, but sharp as glass. The test hadn't exposed my truth. It had exposed his character. And with that realization came a calm, steady flame inside me. Not rage, not hysteria, something quieter, more deliberate. The beginning of justice. The beginning of my plan. I didn't build my plan overnight. Honestly, the first stage wasn't even a plan at all. It was survival. It was me trying to breathe again after realizing the man I loved could accuse me of infidelity, deny our daughter, and still manage to look offended when the DNA results proved him wrong. But once that initial shock settled, something inside me aligned. The heartbreak didn't vanish, it sharpened. And for the first time in months, I could think clearly. If Nathan could humiliate me, disrespect me, and abandon Lacey emotionally, then I had every right to reclaim what he tried to take from me. I had a right to my own justice, and I intended to pursue it quietly, strategically, and completely. The first layer of my plan was legal. If Nathan wanted to make this a battle, then I would let the law speak for me. I contacted Harper Shaw, a family lawyer with a calm voice and a mind like a surgical instrument. I gave her every screenshot, every message where Nathan told me Lacey wasn't his, every moment he had tried to turn suspicion into fact. Harper read through everything without interrupting, then leaned back and exhaled like someone who had spotted an opening. "Emily," she said, tapping the stack of papers. "He denied custody based on a lie. Now we have DNA proving the truth. This isn't just emotional harm. This is reputational damage, documented abandonment, and a direct attack on your character. If he wants to play hardball, he just forfeited." Her confidence lit something inside me, something warm, steady, determined. I didn't want to ruin Nathan's life. I didn't want vengeance for the sake of pain. What I wanted was accountability. If he could believe rumors over me, accuse me so easily, and walk away from his child, then he needed to face the consequences of those choices. Not because I hated him, but because I was done paying the price for his insecurities. The second layer of my plan was emotional and social truth-telling. Not petty drama, not vengeance for show, but clarity. Quiet, irrefutable clarity. For months, Nathan had fed people a narrative about me. He had implied I cheated. He had cried to his family. He had painted himself as a victim. His mother and sister attacked me in group chats, accusing me of destroying the family. They blocked me, spread stories, whispered things they didn't have the courage to ask me about directly. And I had stayed silent. But silence hadn't protected me. It had only given their story more room to grow. That's when I remembered the journal I kept during the darkest weeks after he rejected the possibility that Lacey was his. Pages filled with late-night entries, confusion, heartbreak, fear. I hadn't written it for evidence. I'd written it because something inside me needed to speak, even when no one was listening. But now reading it, I realized it held something powerful, the truth in my own words. Harper agreed. This supports damages, but more importantly, it supports your healing. The third layer, the most meaningful, was my rebirth. I refused to let my identity be the woman Nathan betrayed. No, my life couldn't stop at him. My story couldn't end on that chapter. So I started building something new. I applied for jobs, specifically roles where my reliability and medical billing experience meant something. I reached out to an old coworker for advice. She encouraged me to apply for a medical administration training program I'd once been excited about, but never pursued. Back then, I was caught in Nathan's emotional turbulence. Now, I had space to dream again. Ambition felt like oxygen. I also started rebuilding my presence, not to impress anyone, but to reflect who I was becoming. Simple photos. Me and Lacey at the park. Me smiling at a cafe. Me attending a workshop. Nothing curated. Just honest moments. Moments he could no longer take from me. And people noticed. Friends reached out. Support returned. My circle began to regrow. But the biggest shift came when I finally posted the DNA results, not with gloating or bitterness, but with a single line from my journal. Proof speaks louder than rumors ever will. It spread quickly. Too quickly. Nathan's sister quietly unblocked me. His mother stopped posting passive-aggressive quotes online. Suddenly, they weren't so sure of the story they'd swallowed whole. But I didn't engage. I didn't respond. I wasn't here for validation. The truth wasn't for them. It was for me. Meanwhile, Harper filed the paperwork. Full custody, reinstated support, official record of false accusations. It wasn't revenge. It was structure. It was order returning. When Nathan finally got served, he panicked. He texted me, "Emily, please, we should talk. I didn't expect it to get this serious. Let's handle this privately." Private? He didn't believe me privately. He didn't apologize privately. He didn't protect me privately. Now he wanted privacy? No. But I didn't fight him. I didn't argue. I didn't send a single paragraph. I simply didn't reply. Silence was no longer fear. Silence was strategy. Silence was closure. The final layer of my plan wasn't about Nathan at all. It was about stepping into a version of myself I had buried under compromise and hope. I started journaling again, not about pain this time, but about the steps I was taking, the strength I was rediscovering. Every session with my therapist helped me claim another piece of myself. At the end of one session, she said something I'll never forget. "You're not seeking revenge to punish him. You're seeking justice to rebuild you." She was right. My real revenge wasn't the legal case. It wasn't the exposure of the truth. It wasn't Nathan scrambling to fix a narrative he created. My real revenge was this. I was becoming someone he never believed I could be. Whole, grounded, untouchable. And my comeback had already begun. The day came quietly, almost unremarkably, but I had been waiting for it my entire post-betrayal life, watching and planning, waiting for the moment when Nathan would realize that I was no longer the woman he thought he could control. The DNA results had already proven the truth, the legal filings were in motion, and my life had begun to reclaim its rhythm. The confrontation wasn't about theatrics. It was about clarity, consequence, and the undeniable power of calm precision. I invited Nathan to the office where Harper and I had been finalizing custody and support documents. He arrived late, like always, a mix of frustration and disbelief written on his face. He hadn't expected me to look like this. Poised, steady, unshakable. I could see the shift immediately. No hesitation in my voice, no cracks, not the Emily he thought he knew. I said, "Nathan, sit down," I said softly, motioning toward the chair across from me. "We have things to go over." He hesitated, then dropped into the seat, arms crossed, a shield he had always worn. But this time, it wouldn't protect him. Harper opened the folder first, presenting each piece of documentation methodically, the custody filing, proof of his previous neglect, and the record of false accusations. I didn't need to speak. The facts spoke louder I could ever. I watched as the color drained from his face when he realized the weight of what he had done. The confidence he had carried for months, the certainty that I would crumble under accusation, faltered instantly. I leaned back, keeping my tone calm, measured. "Nathan, you accused me of infidelity. You denied custody of your own daughter. You let others decide my character for you. And now, the law has caught up with your choices. Not me. You." He opened his mouth, tried to protest, but Harper cut in gently but firmly. "Mr. Denham, this isn't about argument, it's about accountability. All decisions now reflect the truth and the documented impact of your actions." I let him feel the tension in the room. Not rage, not tears, just presence. The quiet strength of someone who had been underestimated for too long. I wanted him to understand that betrayal, suspicion, and cruelty had consequences, even when no one else could see them immediately. Then, the final layer of my revenge, my life beyond him. I had prepared this carefully. Over the past months, I had rebuilt my social world, my career prospects, my confidence. I presented Nathan with copies of applications, letters of recommendation, and screenshots of my growing professional presence. Small victories, workshops attended, new job prospects, networking messages. Each one a testament to my reclaiming of agency, the future I was building without him. "Emily," he said, voice strained, this isn't fair. Can't we just—" "No," I interrupted softly, "this is entirely fair. You brought this on yourself." He leaned back, frustration bubbling, and I saw the panic creeping in. The man who once believed he could control me realized that his own decisions had made him powerless. That was the poetic part, the part I savored silently, though I didn't gloat. Revenge wasn't shouting. It wasn't public humiliation.
It was the slow, undeniable truth taking hold, a force he could not argue with.
I pulled out a small stack of documents, a printed selection of journal entries, not for dramatics, but to show him the depth of what his betrayal had cost me. The sleepless nights, the worry, the emotional strain. Each entry was carefully selected, measured, truthful. He read them silently, eyes widening, throat tightening. I didn't need to say more. My life, my words, my calm composure were the hammer hitting the nail of accountability straight into the truth of his wrongdoing. Then came the final moment. I looked him squarely in the eyes and said what I had rehearsed in quiet reflection for months. Everything I am building now, my career, my happiness, my relationship with Lacey, exists because I survived what you tried to destroy. You had the choice to trust. You chose doubt. You had the chance to support your daughter. You chose fear. And now you will live with the consequences of those choices. His jaw tightened. He wanted to argue. He wanted to twist it back, but there was nothing left to twist. The law, the documentation, and my presence rendered his protests irrelevant. I watched him absorb the reality I was no longer afraid. I was no longer desperate. I was no longer reliant on his validation. Every calculated step, my journal, the legal filings, my personal growth, was the revenge I had designed with precision. And it worked. Beautifully, silently, and without cruelty. As we stood to leave, I looked down at the courthouse floor, then back at him. Nathan, I hope one day you understand the weight of disbelief and betrayal. I hope you learn it without destroying someone else. But my life goes forward without you and with everything you tried to take intact. He said nothing. He could say nothing. And in that silence, I felt the full circle of justice settle quietly in my chest. I walked out of that office with Harper, feeling the sun hit my face like a benediction. I was free. Lacey would have both of us legally recognized as her parents, but emotionally, I had ensured that Nathan could never wield doubt as a weapon against me ever again. My revenge wasn't destruction. It was reclamation. Calm, precise, undeniable reclamation. And as I watched the courthouse doors close behind him, I knew it had worked. Every accusation, every shadow of doubt, every whispered comment about my character had been met with one truth. I survived. I reclaimed. I rebuilt. Betrayal has a way of making you feel as though the ground beneath you has disappeared. It convinces you that what you've built, what you believed in, and even who you are can be erased in a single moment. But I learned that betrayal is never the end. It is not the final chapter. It is a turning point. A moment that asks you a simple, terrifying question. Will you let someone else define the story of your life, or will you take the pen back into your own hands? The journey after Nathan's denial, the accusations, the courtroom tension, and the quiet cruelty was anything but easy. There were nights I felt exhausted by grief, suffocated by anger, and uncertain of how to breathe again. But those were the moments I discovered something essential. Revenge, when guided by clarity and purpose, is power. Not the kind that destroys, the kind that restores, the kind that reminds you that your life, your dignity, and your love for your child cannot be dictated by someone else's lies or doubts. Revenge isn't about shouting or making someone suffer. It's about reclaiming control, asserting your truth and building a life that proves the betrayal was powerless against you. Each step I took, from the calm legal actions to the strategic truths I shared to the personal growth I nurtured, was not just a means to hold Nathan accountable, it was my declaration that the end of his trust or belief in me would not be the end of my life, that my daughter would see me strong, whole, and unwavering, that I could rise even when someone tried to tear me down. And rise I did. In the months that followed, I rebuilt my career. I pursued opportunities I had once set aside, traveled small paths I had been hesitant to explore, and nurtured friendships that had been overshadowed by the stress of doubt and conflict. I watched Lacey flourish, secure in the knowledge that her mother was not only her protector, but her role model. I watched her smile without fear, her laughter ringing out in spaces that had once felt heavy and tense. The truth is, your comeback is the ultimate revenge. It doesn't require confrontation or vindictiveness. It requires presence, integrity, and unwavering focus on what you're creating for yourself. No one else gets to write the end of your story. Betrayal may try to shake you, but it cannot define your resilience or your path forward. Today, I am Emily Hart, mother, professional, survivor, and architect of my own life. I am thriving in a career I love, building a home full of warmth and laughter, and guiding my daughter through a world that I now navigate with strength, wisdom, and calm certainty. Nathan's disbelief, his accusations, and his absence cannot erase my joy. They only highlighted the depth of my endurance. And for anyone watching this, remember, betrayal is not the end. Revenge, in its most potent form, is reclaiming your life, standing tall, living fully, and proving first to yourself, then to the world, that nothing can diminish your worth. Because your story isn't over. It's just beginning. This was another story from Revenge Bible, where we turn pain into purpose and betrayal into balance. Subscribe and join us for the next transformation.